It's the economy, stupid. That's a famous line from James Carville during the 1992 presidential campaign. And in today's age of crypto, understanding the economy has never been more crucial. Hi, I'm J. Scott McMillan, and this is Crypto for the Rest of Us. In this series, we're going to start with the basics of what an economy is. And then we're going to look at how the U.S. economy has evolved over the last decade, where we are today, and finally, where we're going. Some of this will be review for most of you, but I feel it's always helpful for any investor to have a refresher on economic basics, which help us understand what's going on in today's economy, which gives us the alpha for successful investing. So let's dive in. My dad was a banker, so I grew up around financial terms, but I was really the black sheep of the family and wanted nothing to do with banking and finance. I graduated with a degree in psychology, but I pursued a career in tech. I spent most of my life with just enough financial knowledge to put some of my paycheck into the company 401k, but not enough knowledge to understand that I should have put way more in than I did in those early days, and if I had, well, I'd be pretty set for my retirement by now, which is why I got so enamored with crypto. Like most budding crypto enthusiasts, I first dabbled in Bitcoin, dreaming of that big return. But as time revealed, crypto behaves just like any other market, influenced by economic factors and vulnerable to the old age pattern of booms and busts. To truly master the crypto space, I realized I had to have a comprehensive understanding of traditional finance and economics, and that it was essential. Most of this primer is a synopsis of Ray Dalio's The Changing World Order and Principles for Navigating Big Debt Crises. Simply put, an economy is the sum total of all transactions, where a buyer and a seller exchange money or credit for goods and services. Ray Dalio simplifies the economy's working into three primary forces: productivity growth, the short-term debt cycle, and the long-term debt cycle. All transactions boil down to a buyer's and a seller's in a market. If we view the entire economy as a market, then adding up all the spending in all the markets gives us an insight into its health. In this vast landscape, the government, particularly the central bank, plays a pivotal role in controlling money and credit flow. And it does this by influencing interest rates and printing new money. It's essential to differentiate, though, between money and credit. While money settles transactions, credit is essentially a promise to repay. And it is credit that plays the biggest role in an economy as it creates immense wealth, but also financial bubbles. Just like buyers and sellers go to the market to make transactions, so do lenders and borrowers. Lenders want to turn their money into more money, and borrowers want to buy something that they can't afford, like a house or a car. And borrowers also want to invest in something like a business. So credit can help both parties get what they want. Borrowers promise to repay the amount that they borrowed, called principal, plus an additional amount called interest. And when the interest rates are high, there's less borrowing because, well, it's expensive. When interest rates are low, borrowing increases because it's cheaper. When borrowers promise to repay and lenders believe them, credit is created. But credit is tricky because it has different names. As soon as a credit is created, well, it immediately turns into debt. Debt is both an asset to the lender and a liability to the borrower. In the future, when the borrower repays the loan plus the interest, the asset and the liability disappear, and the transaction is settled. So why is credit so important? Well, because when the borrower receives credit, they are able to increase spending. And remember, spending is what drives the economy. This is because one person's spending is another person's income. When someone's income rises, it makes lenders more willing to lend the money because they are now more creditworthy. A creditworthy borrower has two things: the ability to repay and collateral. Having a lot of income in relation to their debt gives them the ability to repay. In the event that they can't repay, they have valuable assets to be used as collateral that can be sold. This makes lenders feel comfortable lending money. So increased income allows increased borrowing, which allows increased spending. And since one person's spending is another person's income, this leads to more increased borrowing, and so on. This is a self-reinforcing pattern that leads to economic growth and is why we have cycles. Economic expansion is often buoyed by credit. As spending rises, so does inflation. And to combat excessive inflation, the central banks, well, they probably will raise interest rates, making borrowing expensive and triggering reduced spending. This cycle of expansion, contraction, driven primarily by the central bank's policy, reoccurs roughly about every 5 to 8 years. Now, say for example, you earn $100,000 a year and you have no debt. You're creditworthy enough to borrow $10,000, let's say on a credit card. This allows you to spend $110,000 even though you only earn $100,000. Since your spending is another person's income, someone is earning $110,000. Now that person who is earning the $110,000 with no debt can borrow $11,000. So they spend $121,000 even though they only earn $110,000. You see that this pattern is self-reinforcing? But remember, borrowing creates cycles, and they go up and down. And eventually, if they go up, they got to come down. And this leads us to the short-term debt cycle. As economic activity increases, we see the expansion, which is the first phase of the short-term debt cycle. Spending continues to increase, and prices start to rise because increase in spending is fueled by credit, which can be created instantly out of thin air. When income grows faster than production of goods and services, prices rise. When prices rise, we call this inflation. The central bank doesn't like inflation, so it can cause problems. So they raise interest rates. With higher interest rates, fewer people can afford to borrow money, and the cost of existing debts rise. Now, this would be seen as a monthly mortgage or credit card payments going up. Now, because people borrow less and have higher debt repayments, they have less money left over to spend. And since one person's spending is another person's income, income drops, and so on and so on. When people spend less, prices go down, and we call this deflation. Economic activity decreases and the economy moves into a recession. Now, if the recession becomes too severe and inflation is no longer a problem, the central bank will lower interest rates and everything will pick up again. And as we can see, we'll have more expansion. Now, you see, this is like a machine, and it's all controlled by the central bank. It typically lasts from 5 to 8 years and happens over and over for decades. But notice that the bottom and the top of each cycle finish with more growth than the previous cycle, and with this, more debt. Now, this eventually leads us into the long-term debt cycle, which we're going to cover in detail in the next chapter. So understanding the fundamentals of the economy is paramount for anyone looking to invest in crypto. Why? Because crypto, while a unique asset class, doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's influenced by the broader economic forces at play. With a solid grasp on economics, you can better navigate the turbulent waters of the crypto market. So next time, we'll finish the economic cycle with the long-term debt cycle, and we're going to look at how the U.S. economy has evolved over the last decade. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe this channel for more videos on crypto and investing. Till our next economic exploration, invest wisely. This is Jay Scott, signing off.